Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. Oh, Lord, it's been a while. It's been a while, I meant. Every time I say that I'm going to do a series, I'm going to do something, I end up getting sick. I don't know how 2024 was for you guys, but for me, sorry, it was just filled with a lot of detour. It was filled with a lot of illness. The last episode I did was on the election results and everything, and literally the next day I had a fever that lasted like 2 weeks, and so it just been like crazy. This year I am so happy that we're at the end of the year. I am very, 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 very happy. I had a lot of sickness throughout the year. So I am so sorry. So I wanted to do a series of talking about the election because it was a hot topic. I still feel like it's a hot topic, so please indulge me. This may have been late, but I still feel like it's necessary, especially the topic that we're going to talk about today. But if you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you guys. I just saw my Spotify rap, and y'all, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys have helped me reach my goal this year. Next year I have a goal of getting at least 2,000 streams. Please make that happen. Share with your friends, leave reviews, please comment. I do read the comments. Now some comments are not being shown publicly because people are using maybe cuss words and everything, that, or they're using phrases or words that may not be pleasable to everybody. So that is why like Spotify would kind of block them, but I can see them, but you guys cannot. But so please, that's what I'm asking you. If you're going to make a comment, please make it nice, make it cute, be polite, do not offend other people. Even though when I read them, I don't see the problems that people are talking about. But again, these are Spotify guidelines, so just make it fun, make it cute, say your piece, but without being rude, right? But yeah, so if you're listening on YouTube, please continue to follow, subscribe to my channel. That sounds weird to say, but whatever. Subscribe. I am so excited for next year. For the last few weeks, I've been just working on projects and everything, and so 2025. I said the same thing about 2024 about being the year of productivity and everything, but God had other plans because I just been sick and everything. But I'm so happy to just close this chapter. I'm feeling better. I'm having my last doctor's appointment this year on the 26th. So I am feeling better. I am taking vitamins. I'm taking everything that I'm supposed to take to make me feel good and everything. So I am feeling good. I am feeling better, way better. I am just praying and hoping that this sentence is actually I can manifest this sentence for 2025, and so 2025 is ready to welcome me with open arms, with no sickness, with no illness, with no health issues. So yeah. But sorry for all that rambling. So let's get into the topic of the day. So speaking of the election, I wanted to talk about the male vote, right? The left behind male. How come we saw a lot of men, even Democrat men, not vote for Harris? And I remember a day after the election, like I am part of this WhatsApp group and everything, and then somebody sent a message talking about like, oh, how do y'all think Black women feel? How do y'all think that women feel in general? Is America still a sexist country? Why didn't you vote for a woman? 2 women have, been the nominee, but we have not seen a vote for a woman, blah, 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 blah. And from a political science perspective, and from like someone who studied politics, from somebody who sort of like look at everything from a from multiple viewpoints. I don't think this was a sex issue. I don't think it was a gender issue in the way that many people are thinking, right? I don't think people did not vote for Harris because she was a woman or because she was black. I don't think that was a problem. If you listen to my last episode, I talked about how this was not a vote against Harris, but this was a vote against Democrats and the multitude reason why Democrats are having an issue in politics in general, right? But there is something that happened, right? There's one demographic that we have seen emerge that we don't usually talk about. Because when we talk about elections or we talk about, voting, we talk about females, we talk about minorities, but we don't talk about men in general, right? And I think lately, right, and you can see this with the podcast, men are sharing their feelings. There's a lot of talk of men feeling left behind or feeling misunderstood or feeling, like everything that is wrong in the world is because of men. I am dating a man who tells me a lot of stories about, men suffering in silence, men also like being abused and being taken advantage over and everything. So we have a lot of trend of men talking about like, hey, we are also victim. We also have, things that people need to focus on for us. So why is everything going towards women? And I think this is very interesting, right? From a political science perspective, from a social scientist perspective, this is very interesting because I remember when I was in college, when I went to a gender studies class, and I've when I was in college, I really did not really give a damn about those gender studies classes and everything. And people were like, "But you're a woman, but you're this, but you're that, and everything." If you guys have listened to I have this episode talking about like feminism and how I don't subscribe to it and the reason why I don't subscribe to it. So if you're interested in that, please check. Like, it's gonna be like in the list of the podcast episode that I've done in the past. So look for it. I think the title is like, I'm not a feminist. But yeah, look for it. But I remember one of the questions I asked, I was like, how come when we talk about gender, we only talk about women, right? Because we associate gender to equate women. A lot of the time when I go to conferences and when I talk to people and everything, you will like when they're doing like, a gender studies or a gender research and everything, they would just talk about like, yeah, we went and we did a research on education policies for young girls in blah, education this, and I'm just like, we always equate gender to only being women. So why? Now, I'm smart enough to understand that the reason why we started focusing on women was because, for centuries, women have not been the focus, right? Women are not been the focus in health studies and everything. Hell, even in Shakespeare theater, the actors were actually men dressed as women, right? So women were not, important in society. They were second-class citizens in a lot of societies, right? And so we had to, come up with research and talk about things that, because women are the first people to be affected, right? When we talk about gender violence, although men do get violated, there are more women that and it's even hard to say that because I think we don't know if there are more women because it's more reported, right? Women are more reported than men because men do not report abuse like that. And because of patriarchy, misogyny, right? Some guys, like, you will have boys be like, oh yes, I lost my virginity at 8. I'm like, fool, you were sexually assaulted. That's not, stop talking about it as if you're bragging, right? Stop, like, it's not something to brag about. It's sad, right? So stop talking about it. So I think because of how social construct was made, right? We don't really know the the amount of abuse that men face, right? So when the gender policy came, of course it had to do with women, because women were seen as second-class citizens. Women were the one who were, being mistreated in society. The laws usually favor men. I have an upcoming episode that I want to do that I'm gonna title paternity test, that sort of look at different paternity system, right? Because I always find it interesting how here, when there's a separation, the kids go with the mother, but in my culture the kids goes with the father, right? So I was gonna do an episode on that and everything, but that's gonna be for another episode. But yeah, so I'm smart enough to understand that we study women and the multiple things that they deal with, because women's voices have usually been misunderstood, right? But in doing so, we have isolated the men. And I don't know what the hell I'm saying we, because but yeah, I'm saying we as a fact that, I am a researcher, I am a social scientist, so yeah, so we, right? So in a lot of ways, men have been isolated, right? And it's funny because now that, even if you talk about the new dating trend and everything, how men are I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, ladies use us, lady do this, lady do that, and I'm just like, listen, shut up, y'all put yourself in that situation. But that's me just being a butthole to them. But if you look at it from a global perspective, because a lot of organizations, when they go to help out, the vulnerable, they help out women, a lot of men are left, a lot of boys are left behind. So they become more susceptible to joining a terrorist group, right? We have seen the case in Nigeria with young boys feeling aimless, feeling hopeless, feeling no one is thinking about them, and you see them join Boko Haram, right? So what happened in the US election is not a singular phenomenon. We are seeing that male fragility, right? And y'all who've been in this podcast for a long time, you know that I like to think out loud. Is saying male fragility diminishing men's feeling? Do men have feelings, or can they have feelings? Because one thing that you can say is that men control, patriarchy is supreme, right? So men were the one who created the laws for them to be the leaders, the people that we can look to, They are the one that kind of social constructed the fact that they are not supposed to have emotions. They cannot cry, they have to be men. And yes, we have reinforced that by the way we kind of look up to them and saying that, listen, I'm crying, so you hold me, but but I never get to see you cry, right? So whose fault is it? Is it men are becoming or reaping the curses of their own rules? Because who made those rules? It was men, right? I don't think women were allowed to make social norms. So now we're having men saying that, oh yeah, we cannot express our feelings, we cannot do this, we cannot do that, we're demonized, we're this, we're that, and everything. And it's as an institution, patriarchy is an institution, right? I'm not trying to equate this to race, but it's like having a white person be like, oh, well, we're feeling left behind because everyone is, which they are doing now and everything. But then the question is what is the solution? What is the solution? Because you heard a lot of men talk about how Harris did not see them. Her policies did not see them. Her rhetoric was seen as being anti-men. And Trump rhetoric was like, listen, I see you, I understand that you have, feelings, because I have feelings too, right? Because Trump, even though we can be like, this man comes from privilege, this man is a billionaire, like, you can see that this man has how should I call it respectfully? He has issues. He has issues. They say money does not buy happiness. Money does not make you an upstanding man. Like, he has insecurities, even with all his bills. So for us poor people, we can be like, what the hell? This man has nothing in common with the poor whites in Virginia or the poor whites in Alabama. He has nothing in common. But like, actually they do. They both share the same insecurities. They both share the same insecurities. So that's why he can speak to men. Because sometimes us as women, we're like, well, y'all put yourself in these shoes, so deal with it. It wasn't me who made this rule for you guys to follow, but deal with it. But can we care for men and their feelings without absolving them of the mistreatments that they have done throughout the years? Is there a possibility for that? Because we are seeing that men are being left behind, right? As women, women empowerment, we're becoming more educated with this, with that. I remember my ex, like, I was working towards my master's, and this man only had a high school diploma. And I remember how my degree was ooh, that bastard he made hell happen in my life. But every time when we had a little argument, he's like, oh yeah, because you think you're more educated than me. And I'm just like, sir, I'm complaining about you spilling water. What does this have to do with my education? You can see it he felt like he wasn't man enough to. And regardless of what I said, even literally, we were like, he would spill water, and I'd be like, oh, you spilled water and everything. And he would just be like, oh yeah, so you think you're better than me because you're educated? And I'm just like, ooh, Lord, Jesus, Lord. Where? So, so you can see that men are feeling like they're less than. And then, so now the question to men is, do you need to go to therapy, or do I need to absolve you of something so you can feel like a man? It's like, how do you want to feel like a man? How do you now define manhood in this new generation, right? Because we are seeing that men are like, are angry, they're feeling left behind, and everybody's like, what's the solution? Because as a woman, you cannot compare my suffering to your suffering, right? It's like the same way how, yes, white people suffer, but you cannot compare your suffering to like a poor, because black people's suffering is systematic, right? So women's suffering is very systematic. There were laws in place that were put to, like, to put women in a certain category, right? So I'm not saying you don't suffer. I acknowledge that you suffer. So, but it's like, I'm also a victim. So how do I, the victim, help you in your search to feel like a man? I think that's not where we are, right? Because it's like, now with international development, we can say that, oh yeah, let's create more projects for boys, let's start talking about, like, the effect of how some men resort to violence because they feel unheard and unsafe. I went to a talk at the Wilson Center, and they were talking about food insecurity in Latin America, and they were talking about how, like, women, because they have to take care of the kids and everything. It's usually hard on women. They go hungry and everything, and I'm just like, how does food insecurity also impact men? Because I can imagine that as a man, as a father, you feel helpless, that you were put in this world to serve and protect your family, but you are incapable of bringing food to the table, right? So in this talk, they were talking about how they're empowering women, they're teaching them how to grow their own food and everything to fight food insecurities and blah, 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 blah. But then I'm just like, but what are we doing with the men? Because as we are now seeing that by empowering the woman, by empowering this, like in societies where the man is supposed to be the breadwinner, the man is supposed to be like the provider, he finds his value in providing. By making the woman the provider, aren't you delivering her to abuse? Because a man can become angry and become angry towards the wife and everything because now she's taking over his role and he's not finding his... And I think that's where the problem is, right? So how do we not address these problems? If you're a man, please comment. Tell me, what should we do? How can we talk about this men and women divide and bridge the gap where everyone feel heard? Because now, with this rage, I am so afraid of because we have seen the impact of men rage in the election. We are seeing this around the world with men joining extremist group. And you don't want a lot of boys to be joining extremist group and everything, right? And, every time when there's a school shooter and everything, some poor white guy, they'll be like, oh, yeah, he was quiet. He didn't have friends. No one wanted to sleep with him and everything. So it's like, what social responsibility do you have so I can want to sleep with you so that you don't end up becoming a shooter? That was a really bad joke and everything. But yeah, okay, now let's talk about it. Let's have an open discussion because as a scientist, I'm very interested in this. I'm very interested in social behavior because if you listen to my podcast on being a feminist, I talked about culture, right? Because culture plays an important fact because maybe in America, men want to feel like, they want to be in the soft man era. They want to have somebody to cuddle and everything, blah, blah, blah. But in other places, it's I'm not being a breadwinner. I'm not fulfilling, because culturally I'm the provider, right? I'm not fulfilling my role and everything. So, and now there's this organization who are coming here empowering my woman and everything. So what is my role in her life? Right? So y'all, let's have the discussion. I just wanted to talk about it because this is a phenomenon that we need to start paying attention to, because if we don't, we are going to see a lot of repetition. So thank you for listening. Please, if you're a man, if you have solutions, if you have comments, write it. Please, like I said, be nice. I do read the comments, and like I said, sometimes I don't think they're bad, but Spotify will kind of block the comments, especially if you're commenting on Spotify. They will block it because if it contains a word that people do not like, or that it does not comply with the social norm, they will just block it. So please use your word. Please, this channel is for intellectuals, for people who like to think, people who like to share ideas. So I invite you to share your ideas. If you're on YouTube, again, same rule apply. But thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna try to record more episodes. Have a happy holiday. Until next time, talk to you later. Bye.